Adobe has their product InDesign, which is perfect for creating newsletters and brochures and flyers. But it's one more software package to learn. If you just need to create a one-off newsletter or flyer once in a while, Photoshop can certainly do that. So in this project, we're going to create the Fat Bear Week flyer, two-page flyer, saving it out as a PDF that can be distributed and printed. And in this project, we're going to do a lot with text in terms of having it go between different columns, formatting the text. We'll probably have to do a little bit of editing in the text. We'll create a boilerplate or nameplate at the top. We'll use some text we type in using a font we'll download called Hustedde and make it semi-transparent. And we'll review basically masking photos and resizing things. So before we jump into Photoshop, we need to gather our resources. You can navigate to 1001fonts.com and search for Hustedde. Find that font, you can download it, and then use whatever method is appropriate for your operating system to add it to your installed fonts. And if you have Photoshop open, you may need to close Photoshop and reopen it to have that font be recognized. For our newsletter project, we're going to utilize some Creative Commons and public domain resources. The top two images come from Wikimedia Commons, which is part of Wikipedia. You see the links there to download those, as well as the size that's needed. The image in the bottom left comes from Unsplash. The illustration of the bear comes from publicdomainvectors.org. And then find the little table. You see there are past winners of Fat Bear Week. I created from Wikipedia, but brought it into Excel to format it, and then copied and pasted that into Photoshop to create a PNG document. You can get that off of my Google Drive. Then I also created a Microsoft Word document of the text from Wikipedia. And we're going to use this in our flyer just by copying and pasting. So you want to have that handy. You can get that off my Google Drive as well. With all those images available to us in Photoshop and the Word text readily accessible, we're going to create a new document in Photoshop. I want this to be a print document, 8.5 by 11 at 300 pixels per inch, and we'll say create. I'm going to expand this a little bit so we can see the artboard. Let's go to the View menu. We're going to choose Guides. New Guide Layout. Brings up a dialog box, and we can choose the color of our guides, how many columns we want. And this is coming up as I did this earlier. So I want 3 columns. I want a gutter, that's the space between the columns, of 1/4 inch. And then for the margins, I typed in 1/2 inch all the way around. I'm going to click OK. And we get those ruler guides to help us create the columns of our flyer. I'm going to add another ruler guide from the top. So horizontal ruler guide at 4 inches. And this area is going to be our nameplate for the flyer, the thing that's going to get us the attention. And I love this photo of the bears at Brooks Falls at Katmai. So I'm going to make that my active document so I see the layers. And I'm just going to bring it over to our flyer. I'm going to edit, transform, scale. It's going to scale it down just a little bit. And position where I want it. And then I'll take the rectangular marquee tool, create a rectangle from those ruler guides, and let's add a mask. Next, I'm going to take the text tool, and the font I want is Honey Bear Regular. I'm going to click. I'm going to type the phrase "what is," and let's make that a little bit larger. Let's go to about 18 point. Maybe even 24 point. I'm going to make it white. I'm going to duplicate that because I want the same font, same color, but I'm going to make it larger. So we'll start by typing, what is Fat Bear Week, ? And I'll do a 48 point on that one. Position these where I want them. And then for the Fat Bear Week, I'm going to add a layer style of a stroke. I want a stroke of about maybe 5 pixels. And I'm also going to add a drop shadow here. Set the angle. I don't want a huge drop shadow, just a little bit. I'm going to set the size down to about 18. Spread also maybe about 10. And I'll say OK. And then with that layer still selected, I'm going to go to the layer palette and I'm going to check the fill and drop the fill down to about maybe 45%, somewhere in that range. So I can see through it a little bit, see the trees behind it. And I want to do the same thing with this, with the what is, but since there's no layer style applied, I'm just going to set the opacity down. About the same thing. In fact, I might even bring it up a little bit. Since it's against that sky, it's a little bit hard maybe to see the text otherwise. Next, we're going to take our type tool. I'm going to click below that image. And this one I'm going to change to Arial. 12 point. I want this to be italic. And we're going to choose a nice soft blue. And our text will be the bears feasting on salmon at Brooks Falls in Katmai, Alaska. Nudge that into place. Notice I misspelled Katmai. There's no N there. Katmai. And I also misspelled salmon. So I'll fix those up. Now I want to bring the other bear picture in from Unsplash. So I'm going to select it. Make it the active document. So on the layer I see the bear. I'm going to bring the bear over to my document. I want this to be in the 2 columns at the right. You can resize this as you like. I want to take over these 2 columns. And I'm just going to grab the rectangular marquee tool. And on the, I don't want to get the gutter between columns 1 and 2. And I want this to be at about the 6.5 inch mark at the top on the ruler guide. So about there, and then we'll just add a mask. Next, we're going to bring in our text from our Word document. I'm going to select the first 3 paragraphs. I'm going to take the type tool. I'm going to create a bounding box in that first column. It's going to be some Lorem Ipsum text. I want this to be Arial, regular, 11 point. And because the columns are pretty narrow, I'm going to set the tracking to be a -15. And then I'm going to paste. So I'm going to select Fat Bear Week. Let's make that black. I want that to be highlighted. I'm going to take the background heading, also make that black. I'm going to make it a little bit larger. I'll go 14 point. I'm going to stretch this up just a little bit. Now also in the character, I'm going to click the paragraph and make sure the hyphenate is turned off. I don't normally like using justified text. It creates some big gaps in order to get that nice column look, that straight edge. I'd much prefer to be concerned about readability. The research shows that left-aligned text is easier to read in most cases. Okay, and we see that down here there's a little plus sign because the text I pasted in didn't quite fit. Now, unlike Adobe InDesign, Photoshop does not have a way to flow that text into the next column. That's the big advantage of InDesign. We have to do it manually. And to unselect my type, I'm just going to go back to another layer. So with the type tool, I'm going to add another little text box. I'm going to notice where I left off, hence the need for profound weight gain before. I'm going to go back to my text and find where that ended. I'm going to copy that. I'm still using Arial regular 11 point. By the way, I have a color that's a little bit of a dark gray rather than black. Forgot to mention that earlier. I think it's not as harsh reading with a dark gray rather than a black, and it takes a little bit less ink or toner when you print this. Make sure Hibernate is turned off, left aligned. We're going to paste. I'm going to take history here, make that 14 point black, since that's a column heading. Now again, didn't quite all fit. That's okay. Deselect, add another text box. So here we end up with the idea after noting the interest online. Now when I made that text box, notice it came in as Arial black. I'm going to make sure that's Arial regular 11 point. Go back to my text document. So we ended with online, and we take this live stream, copy that, and paste. And that all seems to fit pretty well. Now here's a little trick. You generally want to have your baselines aligned. So I'm going to come down here. And this one can come down a little bit. I'm going to take the move tool, click on that, and just nudge it down a little bit. So the baselines are all basically the same. Oh, actually, I'm one line too high. So let's bring this down more. There we go. And you may have noticed I accidentally moved it over to the left. So make sure I select that again, use the move tool, and bring it back to the gutter. There we go. There's our page one. I'm going to go to the File menu and Save As DO2 Fat Bear Week. It's the Photoshop document. I'm going to click Save. And I'm going to pull the Layers palette off here for a minute so you can see this a little bit better. I want to take all the stuff that's on page one and let's make a group out of it. And I'll name that group page one. Now I did that for two reasons. One is I can turn all that off and still use the same layout for the second page. This is a two-sided document. But also when we create our PDF in Photoshop, we're going to need to have each page as a separate document. I'm going to simply save this again. I'll do Save As. And I'll make this page one. Okay, so now we're going to create page two. Drop my Layers panel back in. I want to get the fishing bear, drag it onto my image. I want it to be in the two left columns. And again, we'll just take the rectangular marquee tool and we'll add a mask. We're going to create some contact information at the bottom. So again, we use Honey Bear. We'll make it 18. Type the Fat Bear Conservatory group. It's a little bit too big. I'm going to bring it down all the way to 12. Place that. I'm going to deselect the text. Now I want Arial. This one's going to be also 12 point. We'll add some contact information. So 5088 Northwest Grizzly Avenue, Katmai, Alaska, 98765. Here's making this up. This is all faux text. I misspelled Katmai. Website, https:// www.fatbearcg.org, and our phone number is 987-555-9876. I'll make that a little bit larger. I think it's a little small. We want people to contact us. Make it 14. Okay. Now I'm just going to bring that up a little bit. We're going to put a border around all of this. I want to also grab my Fat Bear Conservatory group. And then I'm going to take the rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to create a new layer. Since I can't add graphics to a text layer unless I rasterize it, I'm just going to create a border around that. I'm going to go to the Edit menu, choose Stroke. Once it's been the inside, let's see if 12 pixels, how that looks. That's actually pretty good. I'm going to deselect, Control D. I want to get that illustration that we downloaded. Now this is an EPS, so this is a vectored image. Vectored images scale very well. I'm going to bring this over to my document. It's going to come in as very big. We can go to the Edit menu, choose Transform Scale, and I can scale this down. Press the Enter key. There is our contact information. I notice there's a little bit of texture at the bottom of this. So once again, I'm just going to mask that out. The other thing I want to bring in is that chart of winners. It's a little small for the column, so I'm going to scale it up. Now normally I don't like to scale things up because they get a little bit rasterized. I'm not going to go the full column width, partially because of that. But what I do want to also do is add another layer behind that. I'm going to draw a rectangular marquee. I'm going to get a little dark gray, and I'm going to fill that. This gives a nice little border around it. I could have used the border style and also done that. This gives me a little more control. I'm going to take that layer and name it Past Winners. Name this one Border. Take the Past Winners. I'm going to Control click on the thumbnail to select it. Take the Move tool. I'm just going to nudge it just so it's well centered in that border. Now below that, I'm going to create another text box. Again, I want Arial, regular 11 point. Turn off the hyphenate. It's going to be left aligned. I'm going to go back to my text. The very last portion of the text here talks about the last winner being 747. So I'm going to copy that. And paste in. I'm going to grab that top handle and just bring it down so it's not as big of a text box. And then we will take the past winners and the border layers. We could group those together if we want. I think I'll go ahead and do that. This will be, I'm just going to name this winners. And then I can select that group. Holding down the Shift key, I'm going to use the Move tool. Keyboard shortcut is V. And I'm just going to move that down to just above that text. Because those kind of go together. We're talking about last year's past winner. We want to see all the past winners since Fat Bear Week originated. The last thing we need to do is now add in the rest of the text. And I'm going to do that just as I did before. I'm not going to take you through the steps of all this. You can figure this out on your own based on what we did on page 1. I'm going to pause the video here. I'll come back and show you the end result. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you were able to add in that text. Did you remember to change the style for the tournament heading to be black 14 point? Do you remember to make sure that your baselines lined up? I have an extra blank line here. It's okay. I'd rather have that blank line at the bottom than at the top. So these should line up at the top. And then I have quite a bit of space left over here where I could either add some more text or a graphic. You could leave it blank, but I think why not just add another little graphic here? So I'm going to go out and find another graphic. You can choose any graphic you like, whether it be a illustration or a photograph. So I found another image of a bear from Wikimedia Commons. Looking at, I searched for Cat My Bear. This is a bear called Bead Nose that has won the Fat Bear competition a couple times. And again, I'm just going to drag that image onto my document. Take the Move tool, position in place where I want it. Now, a little desktop publishing tip here, and that is you don't want your subject looking out of the page. You'd rather have your subject looking into the center of the page. That helps direct the reader's eye. So since there's no text on this, nothing that I could tell that I flipped this, I'm just going to go to the Edit menu, choose Transform, and flip horizontal. So now the bear is looking back into the page. And again, like I said, I don't really like to make images, I don't like to scale images up, but Photoshop actually does a pretty good job of it. So I'm going to transform and scale. I'm going to scale this up just a bit. I want the bear to be a little more recognizable. Nothing worse than a newsletter. We have pictures of people, but they're so small you can't recognize who they are. Now, so I can see the text behind it, I'm going to bring the opacity down and create my bounding box with the rectangular marquee tool. And add a layer mask. And then I'll bring that opacity back up. Now I'm going to take all of these layers like we did with page 1. I'm going to take each of the layers here on this page, shift click, add this to a group. We'll name this page 2. Now the nice thing, if I wanted to print this out to a printer, is I could choose to print out page 1, or I could choose to print out page 2. We saved page 1 as a separate file. I'm going to go to the File menu and choose Save As, and this time we'll name this one page 2. Then I'll show you how to create a PDF of these 2 pages. I have both my page 1 and page 2 documents open. I also have a third document open because I want to show you what happens if you have more than what you want in your PDF. So to create the PDF, we're going to go to the File menu and choose Automate PDF Presentation. I'm going to click the checkbox that says Add Open Files, and there's this bead nose JPEG that I don't want. I'm going to select it and remove it. Now, if these were in a different order, you can change the order. So I want page 1 obviously to be first, but if it was page 2 and page 1, you could reorder these. We're going to create a multi-page document. I'm not going to worry about any of the settings here. I'm just going to click Save, give it a name, tell it where I want to save it. This is going to be DO2 Fat Bear Flyer, and I'll put my last name. I'm going to click Save. Get another dialog. I want to click the Save PDF button down the bottom right. It'll take maybe 30 seconds or so to create the PDF. Here's my PDF in Adobe Acrobat. I'm simply going to go to View, zoom to page level. So there's my first page, and there's my second page. I can also choose to view these as a two-page view, and we'll see them side by side. I hope next October you will watch Fat Bear Week. If you'd like to see more videos in the Photoshop Practicum playlist, click the title at the bottom. If you'd like to be alerted to new videos, please click my photo in the top right to subscribe to the channel.